the other side to make sure that that stuff's registering. It looks like there's a couple people waiting. So
Excellent. Yeah, I'm going to bring up the chat in case I need to talk back to anyone in the chat as well. So I can, I'm sure we'll start getting people to, if they're from my side of the world, they're only waking up. So
yeah, yeah. At my side, they're insomniacs and can't get any sleep. So what better to put them to sleep than two developers talking?
yeah, exactly.
uh, all right. Well, I guess let's just go ahead and start off with the introduction. Most people know who I am since this is my channel. I'm Dorian. I run Dorian Develops. I'm a self-taught programmer, and I talk about how I learn how to code to try to help people who are trying to learn how to code. And eventually, I'll probably branch out into more things. But for now, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and doing these interviews is fun. So I got Niall on here. Niall, would you like to introduce yourself?
For sure. Thanks for having me to start.
Yeah.
It's great. I love getting to collab with other people who are ridiculous enough to be on YouTube and mess around and try and teach people as well. I myself, if you can tell by the accent, I'm not from the States or that either. I am from Ireland, Dublin, and I am also a self-taught developer. And I started kind of YouTubing recently, I'd say about just over 6 months ago now, as a result of COVID even. Doesn't even want me to say it. And it was because I was running a meetup locally called Codu Community, which I taught 2-hour workshops in person once a month for free for developers. And obviously I had to stop that once COVID hit and I started to take things online. My background then is a developer by trade, but I run my own business. And I kind of mix between mentoring businesses and tech startups to get their roadmaps together and get themselves ready for funding to then actually building stuff hands-on. So I'm going through my second acquisition at the moment, but it's been fun. I like working with startups.
Nice, nice. I've never had a chance to work with startups. I've known people that have worked at startups, and it's a mixed bag. You know, some people love it, and some people don't care for it as much, just because it can be a little bit hectic when you're working at a startup and trying to get a company up and running and whatnot.
You can't hide. Yeah, you can't hide when you're in a startup. You know, if you're a nice big company, at least if you have some weaknesses, you can definitely like lean on your strengths and just kind of stay in that corner to just strengthen it.
Yeah. That's what I've heard. But with startups, I've also heard that you get to learn a lot because you're kind of thrown into the fire, and it's sink or swim a lot of times, and you gotta work hard, but you end up learning a lot. And I've known a lot of developers who actually came from startups, and many of them are usually well versed in development in a shorter amount of time, I've noticed, and some people who do go right into a larger company, and it is interesting to see that. But it can be really hard. But hey, if you're able to get some shares in a decent startup and it takes off, you can profit pretty nicely. So it has its trade-offs.
Yeah, I know. And like, I think my first job was probably my first big boy job, my first real job or first enterprise software job was really what set me up, I think, to be able to do it and do it well. Because I worked for an Israeli company called Amdocs, and within like 9 months there, I worked up with like 5 different companies across the world. Like I was on my second week, I was flown to Australia. Nice. Then I had like a client in Israel, and then I had AT&T, 3 Ireland, and Vodafone Italy, Vodafone UK, all in the space of like 9-10 months. So if that doesn't get you ready for like baptism by fire, you know,
Yeah.
because I had bluffed my way into that job as like one of their firefighters, basically. So we were sent when, you know, crap hit the fan, really, and then you had to really just go for it. So there was no hiding.
Yeah, it's like a volunteer firefighter going into like a wildfire.
Pretty much, that's what it felt like.
That's awesome. So you're self-taught, and how did you get into learning how to code? Like what made you like take that step? What did you do before? I don't really know you that well. We chit chat, but I don't know your personal story. So it'd be interesting to hear, because I know a lot of the people that watch my channel are self-taught developers, and they'd probably be interested to hear about your background.
So I was only thinking this last night. I think Traversy Media, Brad put up a post saying, "What was your first programming language you ever touched?" And for me, it was Visual Basic when I was actually in college, and I dropped out after a semester. So that's when I first actually discovered coding. When I was in school, I wanted to do to create props for movies. Okay, so like little movie props. That was literally the idea. Don't ask me where that came from. But then I got enough. We have a thing in the school over here called points. So depending on your exams, you have a certain amount of points, which gets you into different college courses. So
Okay.
I actually got enough points to get into a computer science course, which I thought I was too dumb to do. So turns out I was at the time as well, because I inevitably dropped out very quickly. But I jumped into a computer science course and was like, I was just way over my head. We did some Visual Basic, which, if anyone knows, it's a Microsoft like visual programming language. It's terrible, and I don't often say that. There's very rare that I would say any programming language is terrible, but yeah, try that out. So I dropped out of college. I didn't touch code for a long time then, years. So it wasn't until about 6-7 years ago I got very sick, and my health was in a way where I couldn't walk anymore.
Oh, wow.
And as a result, I realized the job I was doing, I was selling fine wines at the time. Okay. So I was selling fine
Sommelier?
wines. Yeah, no, I wasn't, but I was working with some. So
Oh,
I was
okay.
brought in as their beer and whiskey expert, actually, believe it or not.
Nice.
So,
Is that Cicero? Is that what the beer guys are called? I forget what they're called, the beer
I
guys.
have no idea because it's only so new as well.
Yeah.
Because I did do, corporate beer tastings and whiskey tastings and wine tastings. Really fun job, I have to say. But for my health, not so fun.
Ah,
Um, so I remember like literally sitting in the shop just Googling easiest way to make money without a degree. Because I was like, I can't even afford to, pay for a good consultant because it's like $150 just to say hello to a doctor. And
yeah.
I just didn't know what to do. And when web development kept on popping up, or web design or anything like that, I was like, you know what? I've done coding before, and I wasn't the worst in school when I did that. That was probably my strongest subject. It definitely wasn't maths. And I just started between customers then learning how to code. And it's kind of took off from there.
Nice, nice. So did you immediately kind of start off with freelancing? You didn't try to pursue you didn't try to learn how to code and go get a job. You started picking up freelance clients and small jobs here and there until you built up a portfolio. And that's how you got into what you do now.
Not intentionally. What I struggled to get a job. I failed about 50 interviews, I think, before I got my first job. So like an outrageous amount. I'm just one of these idiots that just keeps going, even when I've clearly been told no. So, so what I actually did was I got a few clients through my beer club, and I knew who had small businesses from selling them wine over the years. And I was just saying, hey, by the way, I can build you this thing now, something I'm also doing on the side if you're interested. And I got a few websites built, and as a result, I had a portfolio, and I was able to create, like, backdate some experience and say, hey, I'm not just like with no experience, no degree, no nothing. I was like, I have a few websites. And that's when I finally landed a job with Amdocs, or my first enterprise place, which was, I was an employee then. So I was only an employee for 9 months. And then I went on by myself to be a contractor and freelancer then after that.
Well, let's talk about that then. Was there a particular reason why did something click and you were like, I could just do so much better for myself if I went out on my own and built my own company? Or was it just something that you didn't enjoy about the 9 to 5 or, clocking in and having a boss? Because technically you are your own boss, right? You kind of make your own schedule and you pick up what work you decide to do now. And was that a big factor, or what made you make that call?
Cash.
Gotcha.
The smell of cash, to be honest. What happened for me personally was I was working in Amdocs, and it was great, really enjoying it. I was making more money than I thought was possible in my first couple of years of my career. So I was very content. Then a good friend of mine now, he rang me. He was a recruiter that I met probably like 4 or 5 months previous when, or actually probably about a year previous then when I was first applying for jobs. I told him what I was after, what I was doing. And he reached out to me after a year. It's funny because he's a neighbor and friend of mine now, this recruiter. And he said, hey, I can get you over double your money if you go to this interview. And he said, I was like, what? That doesn't sound right. So I nearly I was about 2.5 times what I was earning this interview was going to get me. And I went to the interview. I wore a 3-piece suit because I thought that's what senior developers wore. I'm not even joking. I wore like a waistcoat and the works. I was so
handkerchief in your pocket.
I looked like I was going to a wedding, not to an interview. So I literally just went balls to the wall because I was like, this is a lot of money. You know, I was like, wow. So it was a contract job. So it meant I have to set up my own business to do it because it was consultancy, and I had no idea. It wasn't even an idea on my radar. I was so happy with what I had, but then the idea of changing my lifestyle so drastically, like it was going from like, I was making $10 an hour in the wine shop, you know, and the odd bonus, whereas it was going to be like $70 an hour in this new job, like less than a year later.
How old were you at the time?
23.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I wasn't making that kind of money when I was 23, but I know if I was, I would have gotten into a lot of trouble if I would
I think I was
see that kind of money.
23, 24. I have a video about how stupid I was as soon as I got that job. I'll talk about how stupid I was because I do have like some advice for people that find themselves in that position because I wasn't ready. So I went in, got the job, it was totally unexpected. Remember just getting a call like after I left the interview because like it was really funny. The company I was interviewing for was across the road from the company I was with. So I was going for Bank of America, which was across the road from Amdocs where I worked. So I literally just went down to my car and got changed into a suit in my car, went to the interview, came back, and I got a call on my way back to the office. They said, they really liked you. When can you start? And I was like, unbelievable. This is phenomenal. So I did, you know, it was outrageous. After that, I was like, okay, there's a lot of money to be made in tech if you're willing to take the odd gamble.
All right. That's the 3-piece suit kind of resonates with me. I didn't wear a 3-piece suit, but I did overdress for my first few interviews, and the interview that got me my job. I wore a really nice button up, and I showed up, and I was probably the best dressed person in the room when the developers walked in after I met the hiring manager. And I thought it was funny because I mentioned it in my one of my videos. I think I'm looking at my old portfolios, and I have this cheesy headshot that I just like, it wasn't me, but it was who I thought I had to be to get a job. And it's funny that you mentioned that 3-piece suit thing. So then how long did you work at Bank of America for that contracting job? Was that the one that you had for 9 months, or your first job was the 9 months at Amdex, right? Yeah,
first job, my permanent role was 9 months.
Okay.
Then, this story is fantastic. This is the horror story, right? This is the fun part. So I worked in Bank of America. I had a 6-month contract, and if you work in contracting, usually what happens, especially with banks and things like that, is you get they kind of extend your contract for 3 to 6 months usually. They never usually go any further than your original contract. Usually they pull it back or whatever else. So I got extended by 12 months after 6 months. They said, great work. We'd like to give you a 12-month contract. Will you hang around? So now I was just like, so hold on, this money's going to keep, because obviously the first 6 months I was like, this is luck. It's definitely, so I was being very cautious, super cautious. Then they were like, here's a 12-month contract. So I immediately went out and bought a sports car. So immediately, right, I had just put, we talk about this off air, I had just bought some Bitcoin, which had like nearly doubled in cash. So I had a
Nice.
deposit for a car in my bank account. I was like, here you go. That's that. I'll take that. 2 days later, they rang me and said, hey, there's been budget cuts. We have to stop your contract.
Oh, wow. That's the problem with contracting work. You're the first ones to get cut. They usually full-time employees have a little bit more security when there's serious budget cuts like that, and contractors, they get cut sometimes. Wow. So what'd you do? Did you sell the car? Is that when you just said, all right, I got to go all in and start freelancing and it's sink or swim, billions or body bags, and make it happen?
Yeah, I see Jordan asking in the chat there, what car? It was not bad as the MX-5, but it was ridiculous for me because, it was a 2-seater car that was totally impractical. I still have it, actually.
Nice.
I still have the MX-5, thankfully. But what I did was I got a call off my friend, because my friend who got me the job, we had been out the day before celebrating that I got this 12-month contract. So we went and got sushi, and yeah, he rang me and he's like, hey, I have really bad news for you. The contract's done. And I was like, shit. So I just started going for interviews, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to fool somebody else into paying me this much money. That's what I thought. Immediately I was like, I'm screwed. But at least I'm driving home in this nice car.
So for
the month.
At this point, you've been doing this for what? You said you worked at your first job 9 months. You did some freelancing before that, and then you had a 6-month contract that got extended into a year. So you had about 2 years of experience or so, or a little bit more than that.
Yeah,
at this point?
I would say about really, because of how little the work was between things, it was probably about 18 months experience at this stage.
And at this point, you had already landed a senior developer role at Bank of America under that contract. Mm-hmm. That's pretty impressive to land a senior role with like such little experience. Did you kind of stretch the resume a little bit, or were you pretty honest at your interview?
No, God, no.
I actually want to make a video about lying on your resume, so that's kind of why I asked it.
I've said this. I've talked about my career to a lot of people, and I've said, I have lied on my CV to fill in vacancies I didn't have. So in a sense of, when I failed like 40 interviews, what I was getting at the end of it is like, people kept on going, hey, we'd really like to hire you, but you have no experience. You aced the tech test, you aced the blah, 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 but we can't take the gamble on you. So it was just hurting. So what I did was I registered a company here in Ireland, and I backdated it a couple of years. So it said I was working for the company a couple of years. I had some of the portfolio work from my clients, and they become references. So I just said, like, here are my 2 most recent clients. Here are references who are happy enough to talk very well about me. And yeah, I definitely, I lied straight point blank at the start of my CV. So my experience was coming up as if I had like 4 to 5 years experience. And that's the only reason I was getting into these interviews at all. But I was getting in and then nailing them. So yeah, it worked.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because I have freelancing experience, and to call it freelancing experience is is a bit much, but I built websites for my father-in-law, who's a handyman. I built a website for a good friend of mine's sister, who was a hairdresser. And I threw together pretty much dummy websites that I just was trying to like pad my portfolio early on with, because I needed something on there. And I think it's funny how you said that you just straight up lied, because I wouldn't call it lying, but I was definitely stretching the truth when I was saying that I did X amount of freelance. And then I did volunteer at a website that I found on Craigslist, and that was legitimate. I volunteered on there, but the amount of work that I mentioned versus what I actually did was also stretched. And I don't know, it's kind of like what you said. I was getting interviews, and kind of like the same thing was happening, where it was just like you just don't have enough experience. And eventually I landed a job that didn't care so much about my experience. They were willing to accept someone with less experience, and that's kind of what got me in. And I also got in from a recruiter for my first job. And then upon testing me and talking to me, they saw that I was eager and willing to learn. And I was also willing to, I was going to be cheaper than a lot of the people that they were looking at, because I had no education and I had very little experience, and I was willing to come in at what I did, which was still way more money than I had been making. So I was happy with it. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get that first job. And I don't recommend lying on your resume, because you should probably, if you're going to put it on your resume, it's free game. You're going to get asked about it. And if it's technology and you don't know the tech, then you're going to look pretty silly. But you can kind of fib a little bit on experience if you have to, because most of the time they're not really going to check with, especially like freelancing work and stuff like that. There's really no way for them to contact previous clients and stuff. So I see a lot of white hat junior talk in there. I apologize for the people who are expecting white hat junior stuff. That video was kind of a one-off for my channel, and it has blown up over the last week, and it's not my usual content. So I as long as they keep it, nice and friendly in the chat, and it doesn't get out of hand, I'm not gonna strike down anybody with a band hammer or anything. But it's just not what this stream's going to be about. So just a heads up.
No, it's about me scamming people.
That's right. All right. I'm an old man, so I like write things down in a notebook, because if not, I'll forget. And I write stuff down on note keeping apps, and I just never look at it again, because there's something about pen and paper that sticks better with me. So I asked you how you got into coding. All of my questions are just a modge podge of questions. They're not really in any particular order, so I'll just go down the list. That's what I did on the last one when I interviewed Jordan. So what's your specialty right now? I see on your channel, Codu community, you do a lot of like front end work. I see a lot of, you talk about Next.js in the last stream we were on together, and you just talk about a lot of front end work. Is that your specialty? Are you more full stack, or do you just do it all because you run an agency and you have to do a little bit of everything?
Yeah, I have to do a bit of everything, but I definitely prefer the front end stuff. I love having shiny sites and excellent user experiences. Really, I just like shiny toys. That's mostly it. And I always look at kind of other people's work or other people's sites, and I'm always like, that could be way better. So I like, it's just from that I could spend a lot more time in the weeds of just the front end and CSS and just polishing up little things to make it right. Just because the end user sees it. Because again, when you're working in a business, you realize very fast that the customer doesn't care about the technology. They do not care about anything that you're actually doing. They care about results. And I think for the most part, the perceived user experience or the perceived performance on the front end, how it looks, is how much they're going to value what you've delivered. So if I deliver an entire project and the back end is held together by chewing gum, they'll never know. And I'm not saying that's how I do the back end, but I'm saying it is definitely something you can hide a lot easier if you know how to use like service workers and little performance hacks, and it really helps. Yeah,
especially now that we rely so much on the client side for performance and pretty much how applications work nowadays, because technology is so powerful, and your phone and your computers just can handle so much now that we do a lot of the front end stuff. I know particularly I work on a Java Spring Boot application, but the reality is that all we're doing with Java is just getting the stuff from the database and putting it back. Everything else is handled on the front end in Angular. So, and you're kind of right. Yeah. What's something that you brought up that really stuck out to me was kind of what you were saying about the customer. And my first job was at a Fortune 500 company for a big casino in Las Vegas, as Caesars Entertainment. If you're familiar with Caesars Palace and whatnot, they own like 50 different casinos throughout the world. And that was the first job that landed as a web developer. And we had really good developers there, but we worked in the marketing department because we handled their content management system. I don't know if you've ever heard of Adobe Experience Manager, but we
My
built
first job.
Oh yeah, okay. So AEM is it. I don't want to go down the road of bashing on AEM because we really did not like it. And as developers, we were constantly trying to improve the product. But all business cared about was what the websites looked like. And at the end of the day, they didn't care that we had technical debt. They didn't care that we had stuff that we needed to clean up on the backlog because it was affecting performance and would have made our code base better. At the end of the day, business, since we worked in marketing, they just wanted us to push stuff out as fast as possible and get things out to the customer as fast as possible. And it's kind of funny because working there kind of felt the same way that you would work at like an agency for clients, because there was no respect for the development process at all. They pretended like they cared about it, but at the end of the day, they wanted stuff to look good. They wanted it to work, and they didn't care what was going on the back end side of things. And that's something that is really true with freelance as well. That people only care what it looks like and if it works.
Yeah, like I said, it's frustrating. I always say this to. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day who was giving out about. Saying they're perceived as only like a front-end developer because that's all you see. They're saying like, I tweet, fancy CSS things, and that's all people think I can do now. And I was like, well, you have to remember, because if you're doing back-end development, it's very hard to show off those skills. Like it's just more difficult to make something visual. And I find for YouTube especially, like I am working on some Kubernetes stuff and microservices and AWS, but the problem is, how do you visually show off that work? It's not for me personally, it just doesn't seem that exciting to look at. And I think when I do more crash courses or things like that, it will be. But until then, it's just kind of like, what can I give a quick kind of intro to that's very visual, that's not too scary as well?
And I say this a lot. I think that's why web development is always web and front end particularly is always like it's the most beginner friendly way into programming in my opinion, just because you see results instantly when you start writing some HTML and a little bit of CSS. You're able to kind of see your work right away, where with back-end code, it's not really the case. You might be able to log something out on a console, but you can't really see like what you built right away. You have to put in a lot of work and a lot of squeeze to get a little bit of juice, versus a little bit of HTML and CSS. You can pretty much build a whole web page in a few hours after learning it. Really, it might look awful. It probably will, but you could nonetheless still have some headers and a little, some P tags, and throw a picture on there and have yourself a web page. And it's really satisfying to get that like right away when you're just learning. I see Caleb's in here. What's up, Caleb?
Yeah, we have royalty.
Few other people. I see that someone was spamming the white hat thing, and someone else kind of told them to stop. So I'll put them in timeout. I didn't even know that was an option. I started looking at like, what are some of my options? Because the last time I did a stream, I had my first troll, and I've never had a troll before. So I was just so happy that I had a troll, because I was like, oh, I got a troll. It happened. Finally, I made it, a troll.
And they're like, now how do I stop it?
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. And I was like, I started just clicking all the buttons, and now I see there's a timeout button. So that's pretty cool.
I haven't figured out how to moderate stuff at all. So yeah, I'm hoping I don't get anytime soon. I just don't have a clue.
Well, we'll see if anything starts. If it has to go down, I'll bounce people out. But it seems like everyone's pretty cool. I can assign a mod. I wonder if anybody wants to be a mod. Caleb, you want to be a mod?
It's not like you're working on too much stuff yourself, Caleb.
Let me see. All right. So what do I got here? So I guess I kind of covered this, and I don't know if we got an exact number, but how long have you been doing the freelance thing now and running your like Codu? Like how long has that been up and running officially?
Yeah. Codu is newer.
Okay.
I have I had a company before Codu, so this is my second business, but they didn't really change. What I had was a company called Niall Limited,
Okay.
and as you can imagine, that was because I just needed a company to get money into the bank account, and then I decided I wanted to do bigger projects by myself. So I, about 2 years ago, I think now, where I changed from that to registering a new company and calling it Codu, and working from there.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, so then let me move on to the next one, which is kind of related to that same thing. What advice would you give for someone who is looking to start their own business involving software, particularly, let's say, your exact line of work, like agency work? You build sites and digital products and stuff for businesses. What advice would you give to someone that might be interested in that if they're learning how to code now, and like what route they might be able to take to get there?
Yeah. So first off, just like you said, Dorian, just like I've done, for your first few clients, you're going to have to tap your own network. We all know people who could easily need a website, and maybe you're not going to make your millions off your uncle. You know, I'm sure you'll be lucky if you get paid. They might buy you a beer or something. So, like, yeah, I think first off, getting a portfolio together is definitely the number one thing. Then after that, it's then learning how to communicate, I think, as well. So I think the one thing that helped me a lot compared to a lot of developers is I've worked in sales or wine sales for 5 years before I started to sell my services. So all of a sudden I realized people like stories, people buy from people they like. You have to really, it's a tough business because you have to balance two skills at the same time. You have to be good at selling, and you have to be good at, building. Because, I can sell a €100,000 project now, and then could you imagine I got that and I go, huh, okay, now what do I do?
It's amazing though how many businesses do that, especially in software. They sell the dream and then they actually get it, and then it's like, oh crap, now we actually have to build this. But yeah, you're totally
Yeah.
right. You're totally right.
Ireland in particular is a tiny market. We have a population of like 5 million people. Okay, so it's a tiny, tiny country. So reputation is everything here. So if you burn somebody, it comes back around very quickly to haunt you. Like I can name the bad software shops in Ireland because people talk.
Yeah.
So it's very, very easy to, like, you do one really bad job, it's going to be tough to get forgiveness because there's nowhere to hide.
That's why you got to move to a big city that you could just do crappy work all over the place and nobody will ever find out.
And people try that here. It's just as I said, like when you do that once or twice in Ireland, you're going to get caught. That's it.
Yeah.
It's just, there's no way of lasting. So for me, reputation is everything.
Yeah.
Delivering great work, and I think that's the other thing. I think is it's about delivering work. So I would say be somewhere in the uncomfortable position where you're biting off slightly more than you can chew all the time, because that way you are pushing yourself forward all the time. And when it comes to billing people, I always say pick a number you're slightly uncomfortable with and charge a little bit more. And the reason is we underestimate how much time it takes to build these things. And when it gets tough and you're making more money than you really think you deserve for the project, it will keep you motivated to get it over the finish line as well, because you realize that that's how you're going to eat at the end of the day. So it's definitely like billing is definitely a good way to motivate yourself, and you have to be okay with getting a lot of no's as well. So a lot of people, I said, there's a lot of reasons not to freelance, but for me personally, I wanted to take the risk because I knew the financial upside and the freedom of being able to work from wherever I want, even though I don't travel that much. But the idea that I can, is all that I'm in it for.
Nice. I think that's great advice too, that to always try to take on something that you're slightly uncomfortable with, because I think that it's kind of a death trap if you end up staying in that comfort zone for too long. And that's, I think, in all aspects of software, whether you work at an enterprise where you have just this cush job that you can work for the next 20 years, eventually you're going to get bored if you're not challenging yourself. And then if you don't challenge yourself when you're freelancing, eventually you're never going to get better jobs because your skills are never going to advance. If you start off doing WordPress sites and you never decide to learn PHP and all you're doing is just building templates, or just as an example, you never try to take that next step to make yourself a better developer to get better jobs, you're going to get stagnant, you're going to get bored, and you're probably not going to make much money in the long run. And to talk about what you mentioned earlier, like the building stuff on a reputation and having a good reputation too, that's just something that you probably want to have just overall, if it's not just for yourself, just in general, because any business that's built on on kind of a bad reputation is not going to last. And even if it's not a small place, it eventually it's going to show, and people are going to know, and you're not going to be able to hide it at all. So let's see what else I got. I kind of want to keep an eye on the chat to see what's going on here. I see Caleb's chatting it up. I don't know if anyone else has any questions.
Praveen is one of the, he's in probably my most active mod in Codu community. We have a Discord as well. Praveen as always shows up. He's definitely number one guy for me for just keeping an eye on things.
What's up, Praveen? Nice to meet you. We'll have some questions afterwards. We'll do like a little Q&A for the most part. I just have a few questions that I want to ask in particular. I've only done a couple of these, and I kind of keep them real mellow and kind of chill and just chit-chatting, because I like hearing everybody's story and figure out like how they got to where they're at, because I think it's interesting. The more you work in software, and especially like self-taught, because a lot of people have this idea that everybody in software comes from, straight A students with 4.0 GPAs who learn how to do algebra in the womb, and then they just go to college and computer science is just a breeze, and they fly right through it, and then they work at Google. And the truth is that I've met a lot of developers since I've started doing this by going to meetups and stuff, that shows you that that's actually not the case. And a lot of people are just kind of like normal everyday people who decide to learn how to code. And it's pretty cool that you run a meetup, because I went to my first meetup my perception of time is terrible, but it was probably about four months into my learning. And I remember the guy that ran the meetup, he kind of became a pseudo mentor for me. And he the first day there, it was a demo day, and people went up and showed their projects. And he was like, "Oh, hey, you're a new face here. What are you showing today?" I'm like, "Nothing. I'm going to sit right back here and just watch everybody and not talk to anyone." He's like, "Oh, nonsense. What, you got any projects you've been working on?" I was like, "I got a little portfolio." He's like, "Great, show that." And then he just took my name down. I was like, "Oh, did I just really sign up for that?" And it was honestly the best thing that could have happened to me, because then I got hooked. And it sucks that COVID's happening right now, because it's so good for people who are learning how to code to go to those things. And it's really cool that you run your own meetup, and hopefully when things get back to normal, you can get back to that. Have you been trying to do online meetups at all, or did it kind of just wither away over the last few months?
No, I do. I still try to do at least once every month that we do a 2-hour workshop still. Okay. As a result of networking with the likes of everyone online, I've stopped personally delivering them. I'm trying to get more people involved and doing the workshops. So even on Tuesday, I have Sid from DevOps Directive coming in to do a 2-hour intro to DevOps on Tuesday evening. So that'll be live streamed on the YouTube channel.
Cool.
It's really good. So I put that out on the Meetup, and then we have chats afterwards in the Discord. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting back in person, because in person, I think they went off the rails, and it was great, and I loved it going off the rails, because what would happen is WeWork used to give us free beer taps, and I'd order in rakes of pizza. People know, like, I get excited easily, so I end up drinking too much while I'm teaching and everything else, and it gets out of control very fast. But it's fun, Everyone, I make sure everyone's talking and enjoying things, and just like, it's after work, people still want to learn something, but I also want to make sure everyone feels like it's a comfortable environment as well. So what I'm really proud of is we get a really high amount of like women that come to the meetup as well, which I'm shocked. I like to pride myself. Codu community meetup was probably noticeably higher in female attendees, which was bizarre to me because I've been to so many meetups and it's just men everywhere. That's all we have.
Very common.
And I was really proud that I was able to make such an inclusive place that it doesn't matter. Everyone just came and had a good time, and it was just nice. There was never any badness, and that's why I think I kept it limited. It was always like 20, 30 seats, and you'd have to sign up early to get in and get a seat. And it just turned out women are better at organizing themselves than men, I guess, and actually say yes to these things and sign up.
Yeah.
so
and show up too.
Yeah, and show up. So therefore, like it worked out really well. So making that like. It's hard. Like we see the metrics on YouTube and things like that, but you don't really feel the gravity of it until you're sitting in a room with people and having a conversation. That's so much nicer.
Yeah. It really is. There's just something about that human interaction, because you also see that when you do these remote gigs, it's very easy for people to kind of like turn off their webcam and just kind of sit back, and when you're there in person, you're kind of I don't want to say forced into it, but it's just easier to be part of the group, where even though you're in the same chat room in an online meetup, it's missing that human interaction element that I know a lot of us are probably going crazy all over the world right now. Different places are still locked down and everybody's still going through all that. So it sucks. And hopefully that soon enough we'll be able to get back to normal and start going to these things, because I'm always talking on my channel about going to meetups. And I think networking is very, very important for people who are on the road to trying to get a job or become self-taught programmers. Even if you're not trying to get a job and you're just trying to learn how to code, I've gotten so many great welcomings from people who were light years beyond my skill level when I was first starting out, and I would show them my crappy little website and they would give me pointers. And I remember when I went to my first React meetup, and the organizer for the React meetup started telling me about React, and I was just like, hey, I'm very interested in learning this, and I don't know where to start. And he tells me to build a Facebook Messenger. I looked at, and he's showing me all the React code, and I'm like, this guy has no idea how little I know right now. But I kept showing up, and they were helpful, and that was the meetup that I ended up meeting my recruiter at, who bought everyone pizza, being a recruiter and doing what recruiters do and handing out business cards. And I was the one eager guy in the room that was like, oh, I'm totally calling this person, and I'm sending my resume, and everybody else was like, oh, gee, another recruiter. Oh, thanks for the pizza. So it's pretty funny. I miss meetups too. Let's see. What's more, we kind of touched on this. So what's more difficult when consulting, the technical code aspect or the business / dealing with clients? And I kind of know the answer to this. I just thought that it'd be interesting for people who might be thinking that it's one or not the other, but I think I know what you're going to say.
Well, I would say it's not either or, it's just remembering that you have to do both. So the time management is the hardest thing.
Gotcha.
Because if you have to do sales meetings and you have to, show up and talk to new people, network, you have to organize your invoices, you have to keep good relations with the people that you're still working with, and then actually deliver software as well. The time you're delivering software, it gets less and less, and as a result of not having a strict schedule, you end up just losing days. And then you end up you just end up not delivering great work either. So, like, again, time management is like, it might be a cop-out, but if you can manage your time well and have like functions in hours, then it's a less of a random amount of like, I do this day, I do this that day,
That's interesting, because I guess when you're working like in a big company and you run an agile team, whether it be Scrum or Kanban or whatever form, most people are doing Scrum. You kind of have that time management that's built into the process. As that's something that I guess I never considered with real freelancing, because my freelancing wasn't real client work, and having to deal with your own time management. And there is no scrum process. There is a deadline and you need to deliver that, and things pop up in between, and then clients have different things that they might change their mind on, or things that you didn't foresee being as difficult as they were to implement, and then takes longer. And at the end of the day, you're kind of, you're responsible for delivering that product, and they don't want to hear that, you couldn't get it done in a certain amount of time. And then you have to go and make sure that code gets done. I always just figured that the client would be a little bit harder to work with, because code is simple, right? You tell the computer what to do and it does it. And then if you run into certain problems, there's usually straightforward solutions for a lot of things. But with clients, a lot of things change often. And I figured that would be a harder thing to deal with. But it's very interesting how you say that both of it combined with the time management. That's something that I never thought of, just because I guess I never really did true freelancing and consulting like you do.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's worth saying, like, that might not be everyone's problem. The scale of the projects I work on are much more different than most freelancers. As in, like, you're talking an average project for myself could be like 100 grand to projects up to
Oh, I think I lost you for a second. I don't know. It looks like we're having some technical difficulties. Can anyone in the chat give me a heads up that I'm still here? Because I think we lost Neil.
Oh, I'm back. Am I?
There he is. Sorry. You're fine.
I must have kicked my laptop, I think, by accident.
Yeah, it's not a Dorian Develops live stream unless something goes wrong. We were just talking about this before we actually kicked this off. So I'm glad something went wrong for a second, because I was getting nervous that it was going too well. So
yeah, no, what I was saying is, like, the projects I work on aren't the average size. Like, I'm not talking about like it's 100,000 and up. Some of the projects I've worked on have been like $1 million.
that's big.
And like, but that doesn't mean I make $1 million. That means that project is that big, and I need that many people, and we need to manage that. So like, comes with that scale comes a lot of complexity and managing teams, and that's what I'm trying to say is, like, for when you start to scale an operation, and so you're no longer taking the 4-week project. As soon as it becomes a 3-month project or a 6-month project, then you're going to start feeling the pain of time management, because it's very easy to get, oh, well, I have 6 months to do this. And then 5, 4, 3, and you're like, I really need to get things done.
You're like, God, 12 hours left to go.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I do some smaller projects as well for startups and things, but like the averages you're talking about, it's months of work for large sums of money. So you're very responsible, and you have to be very active with the client. You have to show up all the time. They expect it because they're spending a lot of money with you.
Yeah, no, I could see that. And so just, I guess, this is not one of the questions I have, but since we kind of mentioned it a little bit, and so when let's say you have a project that's a large project, and you have a 6-month time frame, and you hire out, I'm assuming you have some steady developers that work with you. I'm assuming that you probably also contract people out. I don't know for sure, but this is my assumption.
Yep.
Do you try to, like, I don't know, set up your own version of Scrum? How do you manage those developers? Do you kind of play project manager and product owner, and you do all that, or do you hire somebody who kind of runs your team of developers, or are you like the guy that does everything? Are you like Elon Musk sleeping on the floor of the Tesla factory?
Yeah, I don't usually hire people for rituals. I definitely haven't got to that scale yet, and usually when I'm in the much bigger projects, I end up teaming up with other businesses,
Gotcha.
Which handle a lot of the stuff for me. But if I'm working, I have two different philosophies. If I use Scrum when there is some differences in level. So if there's some like junior developers, mid-level developers, senior developers, it's easier to dish out work in that way. Whereas if I'm working with only senior engineers, I use Kanban because everyone knows they have things to get done. And I can say, here, we can work together and keep that Kanban board full. And people are constantly just taking because they know they have to get things done. And instead of the usual weirdness with Scrum where I'm like, this is definitely going to take 2 weeks. People want to kind of beat the clock, I think, when they're very senior, or like start when you have only other senior engineers, they become very competitive with one another. So I prefer Kanban. I think that's a nicer way of doing it, and it feels a little bit more natural to me.
Gotcha. So you just kind of have your task, and you trust your guys and girls, and you trust them to handle business, and then when you just kind of take it as it comes and get it done as it needs to. And with development, things pop up, but that seems like a good way of handling it. I just wasn't sure because when you say such a large scale project like that, but then it makes sense when you say that you kind of work with other businesses as well to take on a project. It's not just all Codu. You kind of disperse the work a little bit amongst other agencies and stuff. How are you looking on time? I never discussed the time, and I can talk for hours because I never shut up. So if you've got to go somewhere, we're approaching an hour, and I just wanted to make sure that you're not tight and
I literally not. I don't have a meeting for another hour 20 minutes, so I'm fine for a while.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to go over or keep you too long. Let me see. All right. So I guess you mentioned this, but I was going to ask, like, what are some of your favorite things about consulting and owning your own company and business? And you said the freedom to be able to travel, but even though you never really do, what are some of the other things that you like about it? Is it just the freedom in general, or is there anything, the money? I think you kind of covered this stuff, right?
Yeah, no, I if I'm going to be really and brutally honest here, because I have probably a lot less magic than people are hoping for. It's not traveling around. It's actually just the tax and being able to buy things on Amazon Business. And if you have a business with Amazon, they have a business account where you can get everything ex-VAT. And, I just end up getting things a little bit cheaper because I buy things via my business, and I get my hardware and everything through that. It's just a lot more, it's just, it's a lot easier to spend money, or it's just, I end up having more money in my pocket as a result of having my own business. It's just, you can play around a little bit more. And like, I always say that to people because I love what I do, which I'm lucky. I really do love coding and building and doing sales and talking to people. But I did start this because I needed money. So that part of me still has never stopped either.
Well, I guess it's that old saying, and I forget who it is, but it's, if you do what you love, you never have to work a day in your life or whatever. I'm paraphrasing because I'm terrible at like quoting other people, but it's something along those lines. I think it was George Burns, but I don't know.
It's easy to outwork, but it is definitely way easier to outwork people if you love what you do as well. Okay. So why my career took off so fast was I could work 16, 17 hours a day, and it didn't feel like work. I felt like I was playing. And when you feel like you're playing, it just feels like you're messing with Lego and getting paid for it. It's very like and then there's the other person like alongside you who's just like, why are they getting ahead? I'm grinding, and they're suffering. When the other person's suffering, like they're heading for burnout if they try to match you. Whereas you just keep on feeling like you're comfortable going. It's like, I like what I do. So it's, it's interesting. And I like didn't love it water. When I started. Yeah, it definitely is it's just one of those things that comes with time. I think with certain level of mastery, you end up loving what you do regardless. I think if you get that proficiency where it's no longer uncomfortable to do these things, I like to think, I can't speak on other people, but anyone I know that loves this, it's just because they spend so many hours in it that they've made it into a job that's comfortable for them.
Nice. Yeah, there's something about that that sense of leveling up too that I can see. Like with me, it was the process of learning how to code. I really love that process. I love the challenge of learning something new every day, and then it kept building on top of that. Then it was getting my first job, and then it was moving up and getting my next job and getting a raise, and kind of how you said earlier, where like how much more money you made on your second job. And you always hear that in the best way to get a raise is to find a new job, especially with software. That seems to be true. And now I'm kind of doing that with YouTube, because I feel like I've gotten to a point where I love my job. I love what I do. I'm in a great company. I'm in a really good spot right now. And I've kind of been thinking like, well, what's the next step for me? Because I work a union job for the state, and we have great benefits. And if I wanted to die at this job, I could. But then that's also has me feeling like I can't. That's not my personality type. I feel like I need the next thing. And that's why I kind of like started YouTube. And I thought about doing consulting and freelancing, but at this point in my life, with the family and like what all my personal stuff that I have going on, the security of having that paycheck, you know, it's very addictive. The paycheck and the health insurance and the pension and all those things. And that's why I think like why I did the YouTube thing. And then when I see someone like you, you're doing it all, right? You're doing YouTube, you're running your own business, you're on LinkedIn, you're doing meetups, you're talking with companies, you're hitting it like so much harder than I can. But I love like feeding off of that energy with people who are like that, because I think it's that just like those like-minded individuals, when you surround yourself with people that are doing what you do, or doing what you want to do, or they're at the level where you want to be at. So it's pretty cool to see that like when you say you do what you love and it keeps you moving forward, and like, you know, building on top of that, it's pretty neat. It's a weird personality trait that not everybody has.
No, I think you've hit something that I don't think is said enough either. For me, I literally had nothing to lose. I was suffering so badly that it would have just been like deteriorate completely, or gamble and try to get a better job. And then all of a sudden the gambling started working off. I have no kids. It's, you know, my dad still says it to me today, because I still take ridiculous gambles I probably shouldn't, on my career and everything else. He's just like, well, look, very worst case scenario, there is always a spare bedroom here, you know? He said, like, so if you completely collapse, you always have somewhere to stay. Whereas, you know, you have a family, you're looking after them. Yeah, it's definitely just one of those things where like I'm selfishly looking after myself, whereas you have to really look after a family, and
yeah,
you can't just take a bold decision and say, hey, guess what, I quit my job.
Yeah. You know? Oh boy, do I think about it sometimes though. The dream, right? You got to chase that dream, and I'm envious when I see someone like you who's chasing it, and it's fun. I love it. I love watching people who are successful and doing what they want to do. So that's much props to you.
Yeah, no, and I said like it's plenty of gambles earlier on. Like I've got a wide variety of, like, I changed jobs as well. I didn't stay in just web development either. I've took on technical product manager roles. I've took on different things, like areas I wanted to improve in. I always go for those kind of contracts and those kind of things. And I think that's to get that well-rounded business space as well, because a lot of people then say, oh, as I said, like, I don't talk about the business all that much, and I think you'll see that coming in a lot more in the new year, because it's something I forget that a lot of people go to me personally here for advice on, is the business side and running startups and getting started. Because I've had a job as, like, I was contracted with a couple of recruitment agencies here just to do interviews. And like, so I've interviewed people as a job. So interviews as a service was a job I had.
Interviews as a service. That's interesting. I didn't even know that was a thing. That's
yeah. So people that were looking to get visas and enter for roles in Ireland. I had to interview people to make sure that they'd go to the bigger clients and that they would actually have some technical competence before they'd even be let in the doors, really. So I was doing that alongside things, which like these are all little things that I took on, which I didn't realize were things. But as soon as the opportunities came, I was like, yeah, that sounds like an awesome thing to do. And that kind of rounds us out as people as well. It's about finding these, like yourself with YouTube now, it's you found an outlet to improve in public and kind of set yourself challenges that you had to make for you. You manufactured this challenge. You know, nobody asked you to do this other than yourself.
Yeah. It's interesting. Again, I think it's a personality trait. My brother-in-law, we were talking a while back, and he's a very highly motivated individual. Like, he makes me feel like I'm not working hard enough. And this guy he's into real estate. He flips houses. He works full time as an electrician. He's got all kinds of like different side businesses going, and he makes me look like I'm not working hard enough. But he said that some people are just happy drinking beer and watching football at the end of the day, and that's what they want to do. And some people aren't. And I guess you and I and other people like us kind of fall into that other category of like, no, we don't want to just, I have my days where I want to sit around and drink beer and watch football, but I can't do that all the time. So,
but don't like, and the other thing is, don't expect the same results then.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very easy. Like I said, like, because I look relaxed when I do these things, people go, oh, it must be easy. Or he's spoofing, he's just talking his way into these situations. But like, it's never stopping. It's whatever. What time do we start? 7 a.m. here in
Dublin? And it's midnight for me. So you're up early, I'm up late, and we're getting it,
And we're grinding. And what I'd usually do at this time is I usually study for 2 hours before I start work. So I always have a schedule of something I'm learning before I start working in the day. And that's why I had this kind of time blocked out as well in the mornings. Like, there's always something in my schedule to do. And that's the things people don't see. They only see results. And it's very easy to like get lost and sidetracked by people's results. And I know if I said this on Twitter, I'd be obviously told a lot of awful things, because I am in a privileged position as well to be able to take the gambles and have the fallbacks. But I am using the privilege I have to leverage it to the maximum,
Yeah. And that's key right there, that you're not just taking advantage of that privilege and drinking beer and watching football all day. You're working. Beer. Yeah, there you go. I love it. Let me see some of these other questions, because we kind of been digressing, but it's been so good. I like how the flow of the conversation has been going. So I have no complaints about how that's going. I know that I had stuff that I wanted to ask you, and I was just like, oh, let me make sure I ask a lot of this stuff. So most of your work is remote, I'm assuming now with COVID. Was it, you mentioned that, you took a lot of jobs in Dublin. Do you get a lot of business locally still, or now have you just become more of an international company where you just work with everyone everywhere?
It's still, I think, all Ireland at the moment.
Wow.
Maybe UK. Like as I said, it's a small enough operation for now. I don't need that many projects to, keep me afloat for a long time, really. And as I said, like that's the other thing about looking for those high ticket, I guess, those bigger projects, is because instead of like month to month looking for small projects, I spend months on warming up a client that will feed me for a long time then.
That's a smart approach. Then you don't have to work as hard on the little things, and then just focus on a bigger task, bigger project that can net you more and keep you comfortable for a while, rather than being feast or famine and living hand to mouth because you assume that freelancers are just like building the next WordPress site for the next bakery down the street, and they're always hungry and they're always starving. And then to hear someone like you who's running a successful consulting agency and having bigger clients, it lets people know that you don't just have to build websites for, you know, the store down the street. You can actually branch out and get big clients and make a nice living. I'm assuming you do fairly well. We're not going to get into the details of that, but just from what you've been telling me, I can tell that you're getting good clientele, which you're only going to grow from here, right? It's not like you're ever going to take that step back. And unless something drastic happens where you absolutely need to, you have the skills to be able to do that. But at this point, I'm assuming that you have enough people that could handle that small work, that if you did take smaller jobs, you would probably just kind of middleman it and take, you know, give the job to someone else and take your cut, because I'm assuming that's kind of how it works. But now you can focus on these big tasks, which is it's pretty cool to see that you can do that with just learning how to code.
And I like, and I'm leveraging the community and the meetup and the people in my Discord for that. So like, I am a little bit more now asking for people in the Discord, hey, do you have this skill? I need this skill. So I'd rather work with people I know who are supporting me through any means, you know. I'd also like to support them. It's nice to give back. And, you know, anyone that's in there I know loves web development. It's very easy. They're obviously a very passionate person if they're doing this and talking about it without having to. Yeah. So it's a very easy interview process then.
Nice. But
I am, like I said, there is huge change coming in 2021 for me. That I'm really excited about. So there is, I'm legally not allowed to talk about it yet.
Hey, that's fine. That's fine.
But there is, I'm working on something that's much bigger, and it's going to change how I work.
Nice.
The size of the teams I work with. But I am, just to give you a, like I said, I'm interviewing people every single day this week, every single day last week. There's so many interviews, and the size of the teams I'm building at the moment are insane. So yeah, it's 2021 is going to be much more exciting, challenging, and hopefully lucrative as well.
Nice.
Because again, like, it's all about trade-offs. You know, am I willing to take on the extra stress to make the extra bucks, I guess? And that's the other thing. There is trade-offs. If you work on the small projects as a one-man army, that's great. That's perfect, because you don't have to, you're not worried about feeding other people. But once you start being responsible for other people, like as said, Dorian, imagine you were working for me. I might not have kids, but I know you have kids, and I'm kind of now responsible for not only you eating, but your family eating as well. So
yeah,
in turn, once you start taking in people, the stress levels, responsibility levels turns up, and sometimes, and most of the time, I would say for people, it's just not worth it. If you can make a good living by yourself, it's probably way better for your mental health just to keep it that way.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I guess that's just something that I just don't realize, that, yeah, you kind of like have this secondhand stress of knowing that people are depending on you for their paycheck. They're depending on you to continue to get clients and continue to get work and continue to make more money for your company, so they can in turn make good money for themselves by continuing to work for you. And that's really cool that you're reaching out to your own community on YouTube and people that follow you on social media and in your Discord group for work. I think that would be something cool, that if I ever got to the point where I needed people to like do some work for me, I know, like you said, a lot of people are eager, and many people, particularly my channel in general, are people who are like just getting started and really want like that first like little job, you know, like go fix a button on my website, it's broken. Like, that's something I don't want to do that someone could take on. I remember someone had asked me about like my Dorian Develops site at one point, and I bought the domain name, and I think remember we were joking about it, where I was just like, I can't believe I'm using like my Gmail and I don't have a proper like .com for my email.
Yeah, I literally was slagging you because I emailed you straight away when you said you got a domain, because I didn't believe you actually set one up.
I had it. It was sitting there, and I bought the domain, and I had the domain a long time ago because it was going to be like my developer blog when I first started learning how to code, and I thought it sounded so cool with my name, and then I never did anything with it. And then you know how it is when you're a web developer, you have this graveyard of domains that you buy, and occasionally you turn off the auto renew because you're just like, I'm not doing anything with this. But that was one of the ones that I kind of kept, and finally I was like, I need to at least just redirect my email to there, because I'm not doing nothing with it. But I was looking for someone who would be interested in maybe setting up my Dorian Develops, because they were really interested in trying to build a website. And I was like, if you want to do it, like, go for it. I have, like, it's not a priority, but it'd be something fun to poke around with. So it's cool to like just give back to people who want to learn. Because I remember when I was trying to learn how to code, I would take anything. And like, I built websites for anyone. And what's interesting about that, a word of advice: if you build someone a free website when you are learning how to code, don't you ever expect them to pay you when the time comes and you have to tell them that your work is no longer free. Because I learned that the hard way, and I ended up having to still kind of work on a few websites that I built when I first started, and I can't kind of turn them down now because they let me build them a website when I first started. So now I maintain these couple websites here and there where I'll add a picture or two occasionally, and it's such a pain in the ass, right?
Yeah, I did that very early. I just know too many people with those kind of horror stories, and I always, no matter who I'm doing something for, I'll always put some price on it. It might be a low price, but I want to make sure people realize there is value. You know, they can't just ask me for anything. I won't be available. I was like, you have to book in and go through the process. Yes, you might get a healthy discount, but you're not getting it for free.
Yeah. That's probably good disclosure to give people, especially at your level now. I know that a lot of people are eager, and I hear people that they're just willing to work for free sometimes, and that free work is never free, and eventually you reach a point where you won't take it, just like you said.
Yeah.
But just a good little word of advice is that some of those free sites you built early on might come back and need some maintenance one day, and you might have to lose a friend or piss off a family member.
Yeah. No, it's a. I've lots of coffees with people, you know, where I'm just giving free advice. And again, that comes back to where I get most of my development work is through the business community, and going straight into businesses and helping businesses with advice and technical advice and things like that. And that's where I get most of my business through now. It's because I make relationships through helping them sort out their business without ever touching code. And then all of a sudden I have this expertise I can lean on as well. So they're like, oh wait, you do that as well? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. This is not my expertise. This is. And when you've already knocked them out of the park with some advice for like free wins that they can do themselves, you have trust, and it's very easy to work up from there. That's
some business guru stuff right there that, like someone like me who just does not, that's not an area that I'm very familiar with, that I would never think of that when like way back when I was much younger, I did sales and I did retail, and I know what it's like to have to like sell people stuff. And I never enjoyed that. But some people are just natural at being able to talk to people and being able to give people what they want and then sell people what they didn't know that they wanted. And I think that's really something that you kind of need to have if you want to be successful when you're trying to grow as a business. And giving free advice is great. I think you're right, because eventually someone is going to come to you who you've given that free advice to and need some serious advice and be willing to pay because they know that you're a legitimate source for that advice.
And I think that's just to kind of click something I always tell people, because I know you asked this earlier, but like advice for people learning to freelance. You're not going to get business at a JavaScript meetup. You're not going to get business at a coding meetup. Because people go, I hear like network. Go to startup events. Go to business events, because they are the people that are going to get advice on how to run their business, who have vacancies that they need filled. Whereas they're not going to JavaScript meetups. It's all just other coders. So you're never going to get business or things that way. If you could just start going to small startup meetups or business meetups, or, most towns have little meetups for businesses now, or whatever, there's always community events for businesses and small businesses. They're the ones that you want to kind of get into and become known within, because that's how you create a business. Yeah. And I think a lot of people forget. They just go, I've been networking and nothing's happening. You're networking in the wrong place. You need to network in a business circle with the hiring people. Like, you are talking to founders and CEOs when you go to a business meetup. Whereas you go to a JavaScript meetup, you're talking to other nerds with pizza in their beard. So that's unfortunately, like, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So like, but it's one of those things. It's kind of like that's so obvious as soon as it's said out loud. But I realize it's not that obvious either, because we're always told network, and things will happen. But we're never told how to network and how to do it effectively.
Yeah. Now, I do believe there is. I guess it depends what you're trying to do. Like you said, if you're trying to grow your own business and you're trying to find people who need your services, absolutely, the business meetups are where it's at. But wouldn't you say that going to like a JavaScript meetup would be good for someone who's trying to network with other developers and potentially find openings in certain companies, or, talk to the right people who may know someone who might need someone to do something for them or might be looking for a job? Because when you get around a bunch of developers who go to meetups, and a lot of them know each other and a lot of them work at different places, and many of the times they kind of will be like, hey, you hold on, X language. Oh, so and so's company is looking for someone over there. Maybe you should talk to them. So I guess it depends on your goals of what you're trying to accomplish at a meetup too, because it is a little different. But you're right, the pizza and the beard thing. I don't have a beard, but I definitely get a little bit of marinara sauce on the side of the lip occasionally. Yeah.
Now, so it's kind of. Again, as I said, I think that's why it's not as obvious when you think about it. You're like, yeah, but I'm getting told about jobs in JavaScript meetups. I'm just talking about let's cut out the middleman. Let's go straight to the source. Go to the person who is hiring. Go to the CEO themselves. If you can just knock out all the I know a guy who knows a guy kind of BS, you take about like 10 steps in networking, because you just go straight to the guy. He goes, well, our team is struggling to fill this position. Will you go talk to them? So, you can literally just cut out steps. But yes, absolutely. If it's just like, you will get good openings and hear about things by being in tech meetup. You need to be in both, ideally, because you need to know what's going on in the industry and what people are hiring for. And you only get that through tech meetups. But if you want to just like, I said, I think all of my decisions have been kind of like life hacks. Like, how can I look at the end result and I go, let's go backwards. How do I talk to the CEO? If I can't talk to the CEO, how do I make that conversation happen? So it's all about like picking the goal and reverse engineering it.
That's a good way of looking at it. It's funny that you mentioned that too, because I remember my first meetup, I got a job. Well, I didn't get a job offer. I got an interview offer, and the person that offered me that was actually the CTO of a startup. It wasn't another developer. He was actually there. He was looking for people, and he gave me a coding challenge, which I was not ready for. And looking back now, it's FizzBuzz and like a couple other really easy things. But at that time, I was just learning HTML and CSS and starting to scratch the surface of JavaScript, and I was nowhere prepared for that. But it was in Haskell, and
I had the same. It was awful.
I paid somebody. It was like $20 an hour for like 2 hours worth of their time on Upwork, who was a senior level Haskell developer, to coach me for a couple hours on this interview challenge that they were giving me. And at one point in time, I was basically like, hey, can you just tell me what I need to do here? like what are they asking me for? And I look back now and it was FizzBuzz. And I was just like, wow, I didn't know FizzBuzz back then. But there's levels to this. And when you're in this for 3 months, you don't FizzBuzz is a little bit harder for you if you haven't been focusing on programming and whatnot. But this talk has been great. I honestly, I could talk for hours, but I do feel that it has been going on for a while now, and you probably need to start getting ready for that meeting you have here in the next hour. I guess one quick question: you said that you study for 2 hours every morning. I forgot to ask, what are you studying?
What am I studying? Sorry, I think the connection's slightly bad again. Probably
we got a little delay there.
Yeah. Give me one. Okay. All right. We're back,
it kind of picked up for a second, but it's still a delay. Yeah.
Give it a second. Okay.
Oh, I think I lost you again.
No, I think you're freezing for me. I'm freezing for you. It's great fun. Let's see. What am I studying? Um, right now, I'm doing a lot of work with microservices and learning a bit more about software architecture. Um, but
I,
often, but often it's like different. Like I might pick a business topic or I might pick a technical topic, and I'll run that way.
Cool, cool. No, I forgot to ask that one. We're going on well over an hour now. I feel like I'm keeping you, and I'm honestly getting a little tired. It's almost 12:30 over here. So I really enjoyed this. I know that you said that you'd like to have me on your channel. I want to know, is there? We can still hear the voices, but the video is freezing. Just Dorian is freezing. Well,
Oh
it's
yes,
only
it's
right
not
that
me for once.
it's only right that it's failing towards the end. Is there anything that you want to plug? Is there anything that you want to talk about? I linked your link tree in the description, so if anybody wants to check out Niall's socials and where they can find him on social media and his YouTube channel, it's all in his link tree in the description. But is there anything particular that you want to let people know about?
No, if you're, I suppose if you're a mid senior level developer, which probably isn't, I am hiring as well. The other than that, yeah, jump into our Discord as well. We love chatting. We love just getting things. We're going to be starting to build out the Codu community platform very soon in the new year as well, for teaching and helping people to learn. So there's a lot coming in the new year from both Codu community and myself professionally. So I'm hoping that I can help to support people while that goes on as well.
Cool, awesome. So there you have it, guys. Join his Discord, and if you're a mid to senior level engineer, send them a DM, and he might have some work for you. This was awesome. I look forward to doing these again. I know I've been kind of chatting with different people about possibly doing more of these. I'd be more than happy to have you back on here if you ever want me on your channel. I know that you mentioned that you have some plans for that too. I'd love to be on your channel as well. So let's keep in touch, and thanks everyone who came out for checking out the live stream.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and thanks for everyone who stuck in to listen to us talk nonsense for this long.
Yeah, awesome. All right, see everybody next time.